Mr. Commissioner, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. When you were, like, maybe the first time we met, certainly the first hearing, I think I pulled out clippings from the Reagan administration talking about how the IRS was modernizing their computer systems, and they were about how it never happens. I've been looking a lot at this because you're not the only agency which, I mean, we never accomplish it. I grant that there's been some success with the IRS, but I keep on getting a sense that we're having something custom built for the IRS. Now, I've done a little research, and in 1994, there was the Federal Acquisition Streamlining Act, a law that prohibits government from starting bloat-filled projects if an off-the-shelf solution is available. I'm quoting from the article I found. Now, there is off-the-shelf solutions right now to capture fraud, to answer people during tax season. AI can do that. I have a statistic that only 29% of phone calls were actually answered in the 2023 tax season. There is off-the-shelf stuff that can do this, minor modification, but if you said it's got to be done within 6 weeks or 6 months, boom, they would hit it. Is the IRS doing any of that?
Well, yes, it's mixed. That where we see an opportunity to use an off-the-shelf solution, we need to seize it, and there are instances where we will use.
Now, let me stop. In all due respect, when you say when we see it, by what means are you viewing?
Well, we try to understand, for example, where industry is using something similar. Let me give you an example. So if we have an opportunity to use voice recognition, so when someone calls in, they can talk to a computer and say, can you tell me about my refund? How many more days until I get it? That the computer understands them. They don't have to wait for a phone, and the computer says, your refund will be issued to you in 8 days from now, or whatever. That is something that we have an opportunity. Why reinvent the wheel? But when you have something that's very specifically wired to having to accommodate the complexity of the tax system, like someone filing an amended return. Right now, the way we process amended returns isn't automated, and it's a priority for us to automate it.
But let me ask, have you gone to industry and asked them if there's an off-the-shelf solution? I say this because Operation Warp Speed was warp speed because we did a lot of off-the-shelf stuff that people formerly thought had to be custom designed.
Yeah.
When I read about AI in Ukraine or in Israel, it is wasn't entirely off the shelf, but it's being adapted on the fly.
Yeah.
So I say that we're really good at software. So who's making the call that this is so specific that it can't have an off-the-shelf solution? Are you actually soliciting to see if there is?
Well, I agree. Look, I'm in agreement with you. I agree that off the shelf is the way to go, and that in general, government agencies tend to try to customize when they shouldn't. And so I have the same guiding principle that you do, that why modify it? You should modify your business processes to meet the commercial off-the-shelf solution. It's a better approach. And we could certainly be more aggressive in that space. I don't have, what I'd like to do is come back to you, if you're willing, with some inventory discussions around where we are off the shelf, where we're not, and maybe we can look at the gray area and see if we can move more to off the shelf.
And can I ask you this, because my staff's right behind me, he's taking notes. If you said, okay, listen, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to meet ideally within 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and this is what we're going to talk about. And give us a week just to call 3 or 4 different big software companies. Could you address this was off the shelf? Because I think there are capabilities out there that you and I are not familiar with, and that frankly a government agency may not be familiar with, even at its best.
I agree.
So if we could have both schedule that follow-up and then get a little bit of advance notice and give us time to kind of scout out.
Senator, will do.
That would be fantastic. I appreciate that. Oh, this is going to make my day. Let me just give you one more thing. The IRS has decided to delay implementing the change to the Form 1099-K reporting threshold for transactions on third-party payment platforms such as Venmo and PayPal. Now, it was enacted under the American Rescue Plan in 2021, and it moved the threshold from $20,000 to $200. to help taxpayers transition. The IRS will keep the 20,200 transactions threshold for 2023 and phase it in 2024. So can you discuss what the IRS is, now, by the way, Senator Brown, bipartisan, we put in the Red Tape Reduction Act that would raise the threshold to 10K to protect small businesses. So can you discuss the IRS authority to delay the implementing laws? And can you explain how the IRS arrived at the $5,000 threshold for tax year 2024?
Yes, I can do both. And I'll do it quickly. First, we have in law a responsibility to implement all tax laws in a way that protects taxpayers' rights, and a set of taxpayer bill of rights is written out in the law. As a result, there have been times in IRS history where in order to protect taxpayer rights, we've had to ramp implementation of a law if it was going to either be overly burdensome to them or potentially overtax them beyond what they actually owed. And this particular law created both risks. So we felt, on balance, in order to meet our statutory responsibility to implement the code consistent with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, this was one case, and we've done it before, where we have ramped implementation of a law. 5,000 came from work with stakeholders. We worked with the major companies that are third-party pay platforms. They were concerned about their customers receiving a slew of 1099s that they wouldn't know what to do with. A lot of confusion about how you would, for example, calculate a basis of some kind of good that you sold on one of these platforms. So many questions came in, and we asked them a lot of questions like, what is the right way to ramp this consistent with protecting taxpayers from confusion, burden, and being overtaxed? And they said, give us time, and they helped identify $5,000 as a threshold that would allow them to deal with a smaller number of transactions and customers, but yet get a lot of receipts back to the U.S. government.
As important as the Cassidy issue is, we got to move on. The next